Sorry if I'm a few minutes late. Just given a few announcement in the previous class. However, let's move forward. A few announcement before we start the lesson. So today lesson lang tayo. We'll finish yung module 2 ng subject. Very clear topic lang about dimension sizes of the aerodrome or the airport. First announcement. So Friday, guys, magre-recitation tayo. That's for both subject na hinahawakan ko for section 4. That's 424 and 422. Pareho on Friday. I'll provide kay Ruth today yung list ng recitation. So we'll shuffle randomly yung names nyo kung sino mauuna. I'll provide it to Ruth. It's on Friday, both on our time, and a reminder again, open camera and open mic. So please prepare your microphone and your camera on Friday. And reminder also, refrain from any kind of cheating since it will be open camera and the meeting or the recitation will be recorded. For the grading of the recitation for both subject, possible grade lang will be 100, 90, 80, and 70. 100 if you got the question correctly, 90. So this will have some mga questions, enumerations, and things na kailangan nyo explain. So if nakuha nyo yung part of the answer, however kulang, will have 90. If sumagot naman kayo, pero mali yung answer, you'll have 80. And if wala talagang sagot, you'll have 70. So pretty simple, 100 if tama, 90. Pag kulang yung sagot, 80. Pag mali, and 70. Pag walang sagot. For next week, for both of our, for next week, for ano lang to, 424, 422, sorry. For subject natin this afternoon, announce ko na rin para hindi na tayo mag-announcement later. Sa 422, nakaschedule yung quiz natin next week, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. That's Tuesday next week. And for the 422 also, tentative Wednesday yung exam natin. But hindi ko pa na-finalize since wala pa tayong schedule with the departmental subject and with the general subject. But tentative, we'll have it on Wednesday. But with the quiz, finalized na yun. And for this subject naman po, for 424, wala pa akong schedule ng quiz and ng exam. So, inaantay ko pa yung the professor that will be responsible for this subject with the schedule. I'll inform or notify Ruth na lang immediately as soon as I have the schedule. However, with the 422, that will be the schedule since I'll be handling naman all of the section. So Tuesday quiz and Wednesday possibly is the exam. And also, due sa holiday we have last week, so 3 days tayo nag-holiday, medyo behind tayo with the schedule. However, ayoko namang mag-provide ng classes on weekend and classes outside your schedule. So we'll have a take-home sit work na lang po. This is for 422 only, our subject later this afternoon. I'll provide a take-home sit work. Could provide it through later yung link para if gusto nyo na magsagot. However, pwede nyo siyang sagutan sa Friday while waiting for your recitation. So for both of the subject, while you're waiting for your turn, you could answer the sit work. It's a 10-item sit work from the Google form. If ever hindi nyo pa rin masagutan in advance and within the time, I'll be accepting sit works up until Friday, 11:59 p.m. So, yun lang, few announcement. Any question with the recitation, quiz, sit work, and with the exam or with the schedule this week and next week? Go ahead. Sorry, sir, ano pong type ng question with the recitation? With the question, so halo-halo, usually, depending on your luck. So the question, or with the question, I will use a wheel. So random yung question. So possibly madali yung matapat sa inyo, or possibly enumeration or explanation, which is mas mahirap. With our 424 subjects, so module and the presentation, or the PowerPoint presentation and coverage. And also, if you could remember, I think sa activity or sa sit work, I provided some reading. So I hope binasa nyo rin yung reading na yun. For 422 naman po, of course, module, the presentation or the PowerPoint, and the documentary that uh, I provided to you. Doon lang iikot yung question. And it's random to be fair for everybody. Okay, if wala ng question, we'll proceed with the discussion. Our last topic for 424. Let me pull out my PowerPoint. Another announcement, sorry, I forgot. Several people on your class still not answering activities and sit work provided for 424, and also the activity for 422 about the documentary. Again, I'll be providing deduction for late submission. It will be a 10% deduction answering the activity or the set work beyond given or outside the given schedule. And here we go. Let's start. Module 4. It will be our last module for the subject. Sorry, 1 to 4 pala yung module natin for 424. So it is module 1 to 4. marami pa rin division ng subject na to. Sorry, ang standard kasi is 1 to 2. Kaya nasanay akong 1 to 2. However, for 4 to 4, module 1 to 4 ang coverage ng prelim. For 4 to 2, module 1 to 2. So today we'll have our module 4, the last module for the prelim, Aerodrome information. We'll be discussing a short introduction with aerodrome information, moving on to aeronautical data, obstacle data, runway surface, and friction level. We'll also have a illustration or a quick review of declared distances. So kung paano natin dinedefine yung distances natin with the airport, specifically on the runway, kung paano natin dinedeclare for the pilots and for the engineers yung operation ng ating airport. Next up, we got the Aeronautical Information Services, or the AIS. The AIS is required through the convention natin with the ICAO on Annex 15. So, required tayo or the local authority CAAP to have an AIS department or a unit managing or responsible for the collecting, editing, and the publishing of any and all the aeronautical information. Aeronautical information is published by the AIS as in integrated aeronautical information package, including these elements we have on the slide. So I'll be discussing this element moving forward for today. I guess some of you familiar na with this element. We got aeronautical information, publication, AIP supplement, NOTAM. So I think this is the most familiar word you have, the NOTAM. So madalas nadidinig. We got the PFIB, Pre-Flight Information Bulletin, and the AIC, Aeronautical Information Circular. So first is yung AIP, or Aeronautical Information Publication. This will be the main source of information ng isang AIS or any counterpart ng AIS with the other country na member ng ICAO or with the Chicago Convention. The Aeronautical Information Publication is issued by and with the authority of the AIS containing aeronautical information na kailangan natin critical with the flight information. So lahat-lahat dito dumadaan and na-update sa AIP. But usually, ang common thing na update with the AIP is, or with the AIS also, is yung maps natin and any conjunction with the airport dimensions and connected sa air navigation. So marami kasi tayong changes from time to time with the air navigation, with the approach details per airport, and yung mga operation natin with the airport. From time to time, malaki ang changes. One example is yung maintenance lang ng isang taxiway. So, kailangan idaan to sa AIP ahead of time to notify yung authority natin, papasa sa mga airline, notify din yung other country that will be operating on the airport. And hindi lang yun basta i-close yung taxiway. So, as a pilot, malalaman nyo with this kung ano yung magiging changes sa operation with the ground and on flight. Next up is AIP supplement. So supplement, from the word itself, additional or temporary changes lang with the original publication. Meron din tayong AIP amendment, from the word itself, amendment. So just permanent changes doon sa information with the original AIP. Next up, we got our notice to air mission, or NOTAM. I think this is the most familiar word You got? I think before iba yung meaning nito. Alam ko recently lang na-change yung NOTAM na Notice to Air Mission. However, ito yung pinaka-familiar na document that we have on the aviation. It's a notice distributed um, by telecommunication containing information concerning establishment changes, aeronautical facility, any procedural changes, and hazard that needed to be addressed timely and very essential with the flight operation. So, ang difference niya with the AIP is yung NOTAM po urgent to and kailanganin agad-agad. So, yung NOTAM, na-notify to every day in the morning. So, ito yung unang ina-arrange ng flight ops, flight operation. So, may flight ops tayo per aviation company, ang training school may flight op, ang airline may flight op. So ito yung unang information na lang nire-receive that will be distributed to every pilot. So ang NOTAM is distributed sa ating pilot. Next up is yung pre-flight information bulletin, PFIB. Ang PFIB, actually, it's NOTAM din siya. It's part of a NOTAM, but it's actually a visual representation of the NOTAM. Since nga ang NOTAM po ay mga very urgent information and usually nare-read lang to and a-absorb lang. So kailangan i-absorb ng ating crew, including the pilots and the crew, within the pre-flight of that specific flight and on that specific day. So doon lang sa pre-flight time. So what they did, actually I haven't encountered a PFIB yet. However, I think common to sa US. So it's the NOTAM na binibigyan nila ng presentation para ma-absorb agad ng ating pilots, especially with graphical representation and changes with the runways and with the approach procedure. Later, I have a um, a slide will show you the difference of the two. And lastly, aeronautical information circular, a notice containing information which relates to flight safety, air navigation, technical, administrative, and legislative matter. So yung aeronautical information circular, usually ito yung information galing with or from with the local authority. So kung ang AIP, usually from the aerodrome operator, changes with the aerodrome. Ang AIC naman po is from or changes from the local authority. Kaya it said here that it contains usually technical administrative information and legislative matter. Next slide. It's just the part 15 of the AIS, the document on the left side. You could have it downloaded on the web. I think this information is open for public. You could get it directly on CAP website. And the right-hand side, ito naman po yung SARP, yung standard procedure na fina-follow natin from ICAO or from the UN, Annex 1 to Annex 18. So for our subject today, a lot of these annexes will be used. So yung mga standards. So and for today, we'll be reviewing some of them. On our other subjects sa production, nagpo-focus tayo on Annex 8, so airworthiness of the aircraft. Next slide. I got here an example of a NOTAM. So this is an example of a NOTAM provided pre-flight on the pilot. Usually kasama din siya with the airport. You could see here the information needed before flight. So hindi ko na kayo tuturuan in details magbasa ng NOTAM. It will consume a lot of our time. However, you could understand naman most of the details on the NOTAM. You could see there TWY, taxiway, runway is closed with a specific um, wingspan, more than 150 feet. So if your aircraft is more than that wingspan, you are not allowed with the specific taxiway and runway. You could also hear or you could also see here yung details ng airport and yung time when the NOTAM is affected. You could see here yung time that's in Zulu to permanent. So permanent na yung NOTAM or information na to. On the next slide, you could see here an example of the PFIB. As I mentioned, PFIB is similar with the NOTAM na naka-visual presentation lang siya. You could see on the slide here the map of the runway. So imbes na naka-words yung closed na runway or yung runway na merong limits within the day and permanently within the time provided, you could see na they provided yung whole airport since as a pilot, you will be maneuvering the aircraft within the airport. Ang ginawa nila, hinighlight na lang nila yung close na runway. You could see the big highlighted red here. That's the runway that is currently closed. We got the terminal here and yung mga taxiway na close for that specific NOTAM. Ngayon, the PFIB is much better or it's better to have a PFIB together with the NOTAM since naka-embed with our pilots yung close na taxiway which is highlighted on red. So for any question with the differences of the documents we have discussed, go ahead if my question. Okay, if wala ng question, let's move forward to our next topic. Aeronautical data accuracy and integrity requirements. So very self-explanatory. Naka-table to on the CAAP or Aerodrome manual, which is our main references for the subject. Provided lang with this table yung accuracy natin with the data, yung plus minus na limits with the data that we are providing. So if ever you will be assigned to CAAP on the aerodrome or you will be a representative of an airline managing with the aerodrome data or you will be assigned on the flight ops, ito yung accuracy na kailangan natin with those specific. So I'll turn into the next slide so you could have more understanding. You could see here yung mga data na kailangan natin. So we got the runway, center line points, holding points, taxiway, and nandito yung accuracy natin within those limits. Plus minus of this accuracy. And another thing you could see there is that doon sa data accuracy na provide, na limit, you could see surveyed or calculated. So you could have, or the data could be a surveyed point, a calculated point, and a declared point. So pag sinabi pong surveyed point, so sinukat po ito on hand ng aerodrome operator or ng authority. So, kaya siya surveyed point. Pag sinabi naman pong calculated points, itong data na to is gathered, so kinuha siya from the surveyed point. Hindi man siya directly sinukat, pero kinuha siya on the surveyed point. Next stop is yung declared point. These are datas na dineclared ng authority or ng airport formally announced. So, nandito papasok yung mga coordinates ng specific runways. So, may mga ibang data na hindi nila sinurvey, hindi rin nila sinukat or kinuha sa surveyed data. However, dineclared nila yung mga boundaries na to. At this point from there, this region and boundary points, yan yung declared points natin for the data accuracy of some of the aerodrome information. Yung table ko with this slide, so ito yung location niya. If you want to take a look, it's on Appendix 5 of the aerodrome or the MOS from the CAAP. Part lang to, so mahaba ito. These are a lot of a few pages kasi lahat ng data we need ay nilalagyan nila ng accuracy. All data that will be gathering from the aerodrome or from the airport. So, notes that you have to take from here is yung kinds or pagkakaiba lang ng surveyed, calculated, and ng declared points. Next slide is yung aerodrome information to be provided for the publication ng AIP. So as an aerodrome operator, either private ka or public, yung nag-ooperate ng aerodrome, ito yung mga information na kailangan niya i-provide timely sa ating AIP or sa nag-handle ng AIP sa AIS with the CAAP. So, nakalagay dito yung mga information that we needed. First one is yung aerodrome diagram. So, very important na we have the aerodrome diagram from time to time. Ito yung magiging primary basis natin with the ground and with the air operation. It should include yung layout ng mga runways, taxiways, any changes with it, even yung nature ng surfaces for each runway, kailangan provided yan. We also have the designation, correct designation, correct reference point, direction, distances from the tower, and location ng mga terminal building should be included on the aerodrome diagram. Next up is yung aerodrome location. So, yung location mismo ng aerodrome should be exactly provided sa ating mga chart. So, may mga companies na nag-handle ng mga chart natin that is used for air navigation, and you must provide the correct information for the location. Next is yung movement area. Self-explanatory, we have discussed na yung pagkakaiba ng movement area sa maneuvering area. So the movement area, kailangan din provided yung mga correct bearing, correct reference code for every part. Clearway should be provided also. So clearway, we'll discuss it later. So declared distances at the end of this PowerPoint. So lighting system, we have discussed yung lighting system ng mga runways, mga lighting that is in conjunction with the visual approach, kailangan provided accurately and timely sa ating aerodrome or sa AIP information. So also included navigation aid and also the rescue and firefighting services, pinoprovide din to sa chart timely. Even yung operation ng rescue or firefighting services should be provided timely Since if we have emergencies um, encountered while on flight, alam ng ating crew kung saang airport sila maglaland. Since it will be taken account as an emergency, so declaring an emergency, the crew will have the power to land their aircraft at any airport. And they could choose the airport kung saan sa tingin nila ma-address yung emergency na na-encounter nila. So, kailangan updated din yung ating services. Ground services, of course, kailangan updated. Um, includes yung fuel suppliers, contact, operating hours, even other services from the ground na kinikater on the airline kailangan um, updated sa ating Aerodrome information. Since ang mga airline naman po, pag lumilipad sa ibang airport, hindi naman lahat ng airport is meron silang team to provide yung ground services. So may mga time na kailangan nila mag-relay sa third-party company, which are the FBO, the fixed base operator. So may mga company, especially sa mga remote and secondary airport natin, na nagpo-provide ng mga services na kailangan, such as or especially yung fuel. Also, nagpo-provide din sila ng generator since nakakatipid ang airline relying sa generator. Sir, paano naman po if wala talagang ground services? So yes, there are times na walang ground services doon sa specific airport, which makakalipad pa rin naman tayo on those airport. However, mas malaki yung gastos na or cost ng account natin. Since kailangan natin i-account yung dalawang leg ng flight. For example, the fuel. So, hindi tayo makakapag-refuel on that airport. So, kailangan natin i-account yung fuel inbound and outbound of that airport. Another thing, kung walang fixed base operator doon, walang ground services, kailangan natin gumamit ng ating generator that we have the aircraft. So such as APU, I think familiar kayo with the APU, it's the generator built with the commercial aircraft. So kung wala tayong ground services, we'll have to use the APU. Ang APU po, isa din siyang engine that generates the electricity. So as an engine, it will rely also on the fuel. So kung kailangan natin ng electricity on that airport, i-compute din natin yun with our fuel cost, which is mas malaki ang cost na i-account natin. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo, mas mahal ang flights sa mga remote areas natin domestic. Of course, we should also have the special procedures, notices, and the boundaries of the air control services. We also need to have or kailangan yung pag-determine natin ng mga information on the previous slide, kailangan may standard tayo na sinusunod. So, hindi pwedeng, although tama yung facts and information na ilalagay mo on this publication from the Aerodrome, hindi lang sapat na tama yung mga information. We also have to follow yung rules and standards provided per information. And we'll be discussing a few of them. So first up, we got yung nature or runway surface. So hindi ka pwedeng maglagay ng own description mo ng runway. It should be designated kung asphalt siya, concrete, gravel, grass. So kailangan andoon lang sa choices yung ibibigay mong surface or nature ng surface. Next up is yung runway bearing and designation. So runway bearing and designation, familiar naman kayo dito. It is yung bearing ng runway, magnetic, in the compass, rounded off on the nearest 10 degrees. So for example, yung bearing ng runway na to is 240. So round off with the 10 degrees, nearest 10 degrees, it will be 24. So i-designate natin siya, kailangan 24, runway 24. Sir, paano naman po na-determine yung sa kabila or yung sa kabilang side ng specific runway? So, compass, imagine niyo lang, sa compass kung 240 yung other side, so in order for you to have the other side, kailangan mo mag-rotate ng 180. So, either plus or i-minus 180 lang natin yung designation. So, for example, yung 240. So, ang automatic counterpart niyan, so 240 minus 180, that is 60. So, ibig sabihin, 60 degrees yung magnetic bearing ng kabilang runway. I-round off natin siya, it will be runway 06. So, automatic runway 24, ang counterpart is runway 06. Kung meron tayong runway 13, counterpart is runway 31. So, rounded off lang and then plus or minus 180. Common question I've encountered, sir, exact po ba yung bearing na pinoprovide ng mga runway? Yes, it is exact as much as possible, but may mga luma kasing runway that was constructed a long time ago na hindi ganun ka-exact yung bearing nila. However, it is still rounded off correctly. So, for example, may runway ka nito, ang exact bearing niya is 238. So, ira-round off lang nila sa nearest, which is 240, and then it will become runway 24. But of course, sa mga recently constructed nating aerodrome, almost exact na yung ating mga bearing and designation. And this bearing also, ito yung nakikita nyo at the end of the runway. So, yun. Runway 06, runway 24. Next stop is yung runway length. So, with the runway length, you could provide, or the operator of the aerodrome must provide it either in meters or feet. So, yun lang ang ating magiging unit, meter or feet. For the taxiway designation, so with the designation of the taxiway, it should be a single letter used without numbers to designate each main taxiway. But there are exemptions where you could provide a number together with that single letter pag meron tayong mga short feeder na taxiway or yung mga maliliit connecting na taxiway. But doon sa mga major taxiway natin, kailangan single letter lang ang nakadesignate. Next stop, location and designation. So, the aerodrome reference point. So, the aerodrome reference point, it will be the point established on the aerodrome kung saan tayo magsusukat or saan natin kukunin lahat ng sukat ng airport. So, it is established by the CAAP and with the aerodrome operator, yung reference point natin from that specific aerodrome. Next is elevation. Of course, we need to provide the elevation. Kailangan ng elevation natin is by feet lang. We will not provide by meters sa ating information. As you could see within documentaries and movies, we process information on the flight through feet lang. So, English units lang tayo with in terms of elevation. Wala pa tayong na-encounter na gumagamit ng meters with the elevation. However, with the computation sa engineering side, we use meters. If you could recall sa aerodynamics, I know you use both metric and both English. However, for the elevation, we'll use feet only. Next up is runway reference code number. Later we'll discuss that. Apron. So with the apron, same with the runway, kailangan provided yung surface type niya kung papasok siya with concrete, gravel, and asphalt. And kailangan provided din yung correct designation. Pavement strength, kailangan provided din. So with the pavement strength, we'll discuss later, madadaanan natin yan. We call the ACN PCR method. So i-discuss ko yan later. Next up, so we got the runway width, strip width, slope. So with this, kailangan in meters or feet lang yung runway dimensions natin. Later, I'll be discussing sa declared distances itong mga runway dimensions will be provided. So yun, under siya lahat ng declared distances. If narinig nyo na, doon napapasok yung TORA, TODA, ASDA, and LDA. So we'll check on that later. Also with the fences, kailangan provided din siya yung exact dimensions niya should be provided on the aerodrome or aeronautical information. Yung mga structures nito kailangan nakadetermine yung height ng fences. With the bank, ito po yung, so kung yung fences obstructing yan pataas, yung bank naman po ito yung mga naka nakalubog na part doon sa ating airport. So ang primary function nito is to have an overflow ng water pag meron tayong weather condition. So mapapansin nyo may sariling kanal yung airport. You have take a look on your flight before, may sarili tayong drainage system there to keep the runway and the taxiway dry as much as possible. And may sarili din tayong part sa airport kung saan ina-allocate yung mga water nito. So hindi natin, or mostly, but not all, hindi natin nilalabas yung water collected on the airport. Masyadong malaki yung area na nasasakop ng airport and it will cause flooding sa nearby residential area if we'll take the water out from the aerodrome. So yung large collected water na to, meron tayong mga parts with the aerodrome na kinokolekta ng water and kailangan designated din to with the aerodrome information. Intersection departure, declare distances for an intersection. We'll check on that later. I'll have a representation for it. So yun, that is the end of the slide for standards for the aerodrome information. I'm sorry, we have pala another one here. Aerodrome and runway elevation. So kailangan provided din yan. Since ang runway po natin, if you're not aware, hindi po siya perpendicular with the X and Y axis. So may mga runway na may slope. May mga runway din na magkakaiba yung slope. So may runway na dalawa or tatlo yung slope. So hindi ganun kapantay yung runway. Especially with the secondary airport, which is, let's say, hindi constructed perfectly. So kailangan din yung aerodrome obstruction charts. I think madadaanan natin yan today. However, meron tayong lesson yan for midterm. We'll focus on that. One direction runway. So may mga runway na isa lang ang direction. Hindi siya naka 180 from both sides. Lighting system, visual aid, navigation, notices, coordinates, and even temperature. Kailangan naka-provide. on the airport. Since meron kasing mga airport guys na walang tower or non-towered and walang nagmamanage 24/7. So kailangan nakapublish yung local temperature that naka-project nila for the year. So at this month, ganito ang temperature niya, the next few months, ganito. Since wala nga tower to provide the accurate temperature from time to time. However, sa mga towered airport naman, nakasama yan sa ATIS provided from time to time sa ating operation. Nakasama din doon yung altimeter, the current altimeter ng ating aerodrome. So nag-change po yan yung pressure natin from time to time. So ini-input yan on the aircraft para magkaroon tayo ng correct elevation on that specific airport at the specific temperature, density, and pressure. There we go. So yun yung mga standard na kailangan nating sundin determining aerodrome or airport information. So on the next slide, self-explanatory conditions related on the airport na kailangan provided also timely sa ating AIS. So you could see here, construction and maintenance work, kailangan provided yan. If may sira ang airport, of course, common sense provided. Water on the runway also. With the water on the runway, timely yung mga ganitong information kasi hindi siya katulad ng construction na ahead of time, alam mo, may schedule ka kung kailan yung construction. With the water on the runway, usually provided to with the NOTAM and with the ATIS since timely yung mga ganitong incident. We also have contaminants, temporary hazard. So kung meron tayong mga aircraft na nakastock at certain taxiway, so nangyayari yan, especially pag basa yung ating runway, nagkakaroon din tayo ng mga runway incursion on landing and takeoff. So kailangan nakalagay yun doon sa ating information. Also, any failure or irregular information or operation na wala sa standard. So pag deviate tayo with the standard operation ng airport, kailangan naka-designate din yan with the aeronautical information. Next slide, we got obstacle data. So ang obstacle data, ito dito na papasok yung imaginary konsepto ng airport limitation surfaces sa taas during air operation within the airport boundaries. So magkakaroon lang tayo ng quick preview with the obstacle data. We'll have a detailed assumption and discussion for it sa ating midterm. Already have the PowerPoint for it kung saan discuss natin siya in detail. But today, however, you should be familiar with it. Obstacle data and obstacle limitation surfaces. So ganito po siya. I think I have a picture here. So you could see the picture here. I've actually attached a YouTube video here. If mahirapan kayo imagine yung representation on the PowerPoint, you could watch the presentation later and we'll discuss naman this thoroughly sa midterm. However, ito yung representation. The blue line you could see here, the blue small line, yan po yung runway. And as you could see, umaakyat yung parts ng obstacle limitation surfaces. We got the orange part here, the transitional. We got the inner horizontal, the conical, and the outer horizontal. So para siyang, if you could imagine, actually para din siyang if may nakakita na sa inyo ng airspace boundary sa mga airport within the map, ganun siya. So para siyang naka-reverse na cake, if you could see. So dito papasok yung mga obstacle-free zone natin on the airport. So ito yung runway. So supposedly, itong highlighted area na to, the obstacle limitation surfaces, kailangan wala tayong obstacle within this surface. So if may magtatayo ng buildings within or lagpas dito sa ating obstacle o OLS, kailangan provided or ipapaalam to with the government or with CAAP. However, may mga times na hindi maiwasan so na meron ng existing building or obstacle doon or within the area ng airport. So for example, nauna yung mga building na to before nagkaroon ng growth doon sa airport or before magawa yung airport. So may mga times na may mga obstacle na lagpas within these boundaries. Kailangan lang designated siya with the aerodrome information and kailangan pinoprovide siya ng operator from time to time. Hindi lang mga buildings ang papasok with this OLS. Also yung mga permanent fixtures natin like ng mga mountains. So may mga airport tayo within mountain ranges. So may mga mountain ranges na papasok dito. Which wala naman na tayong magagawa since permanent na to. So kailangan lang naka-labeled siya if lalagpas siya with this OLS. And very important, if you will be working with CAAP, kailangan important na alam nyo kung paano i-designate tong OLS. And as an engineer for representing an airline, kailangan kabisado nyo din yung OLS. From flight operation naman, operating an aircraft, kailangan lang familiar kayo. No need to memorize the OLS since usually naman yung mga airport na you will be operating will have a towered airport and there would be a tower that will mandate yung direction na pupuntahan. However, still, you have to be familiar with this. Next slide is runway, surface condition. So we issued runway condition code. Minsan kasama to ng 80s. So 80s, I think na-discuss ko na 80s sa inyo. Ito yung information na pinapublish sa radio na present doon sa ating airport. So kasama dito or possibly nakasama dito is yung runway condition code. It will provide an information for the pilot and the crew operating the aircraft kung ano yung current condition ng ating runway. So you could see the table on the slide. Very self-explanatory naman. You could see there the code and yung description per code. And you could see pababa siya. So the higher the number, more controllable ang ating aircraft. The lower the number, more slippery and more kailangan natin magkaroon ng caution operating the aircraft. If hindi ko pa na-discuss yung 80s before, that is the automatic terminal information service. So if you open the radio of the airport, so may designated 80s radio yan. So minsan, through the operation ng airport, basta bukas ang airport, if it's 24/7, 24/7 may 80s. If 8 to 5 ang operation ng airport, 8 to 5 may 80s tayo. So tinitingnan yan ng crew or pinakikinggan before taking off before operating, minsan on the pre-flight pa lang para magkaroon ng idea, and on the approach and the actual operation. So may mga times na sarado ang tower, so wala tayong ATIS. May mga times naman, may mga airport na walang designated radio ng ATIS. So kailangan yung information, kukunin mo with the tower. So ayan, self-explanatory, ang runway condition code. Skip it now. Into the next slide, you could see yung ating RCAM, Runway Condition Assessment Matrix. You could see here yung actions na kailangan gawin ng crew with those condition. So example, we got the condition code of 6. So pag condition code 6, it's the highest. So it's a dry runway. We got no action should be taken. And from 5 to 0, you could see na bumababa yung braking action natin from good to less than poor. And you could see na nagpro-provide din with the RCAM kung ano yung common mitigation na procedures na pwede gawin ng ating crew. Okay, next up, we got the runway friction level. Ito yung provide ko kanina. The ACR, PCR method. So with the ACR, classification rating, provided na po to ni manufacturer. So we don't have information on how they get that, but it's provided in conjunction with the PCR. However, the PCR, so ito ang example ng PCR, divided into 5 parts. The first part is the numerical value indicating yung load capacity ng pavement or ng runway. The second part naman po is either R or F. So it will designate yung pavement ng ating runway. So pag R yan, so example here, R, so that is rigid. So pag rigid po ang ating runway, it stands for concrete. So pag F naman po, flexible, it stands for asphalt. So either concrete or asphalt. The third part, we have letters A to D expressing yung strength nung ating runway. And magkaiba yung strength na pinoprovide A to D if rigid siya or flexible. You could check on the internet but no need to discuss in details ng runway strength provided. The fourth part naman po is the maximum tire pressure na kaya i-support ng ating runway or ng ating pavement. Usually, or we have 4 classification. It's W, X, Y, and Z. Pag W po, no tire pressure. So, unlimited. So, ibig sabihin, matibay yung ating runway that we have. Next is X, that is high, which the maximum tire pressure is 1.75 megapascal. Next is Y, which is medium, maximum tire pressure of 1.25 megapascal. And the last letter is Z. Z, it's low, maximum tire pressure is only 0.05 megapascal. And the last letter, the fifth part, so letter T dito sa ating example, is yung process kung paano nakuha yung mga information. So yung letter na to is either T or U lang. So pag T, so ibig sabihin technically evaluated yung pagkuha ng information. Nagkaroon tayo ng investigation and we have materials and equipments provided to get those information. Pag yun naman po ang nandito sa fifth part ng PCN, that's indicate usage. So we have physical testing provided to get those information. Next stop or next slide, declared distances. Let me check if um so we got around 4 slides left. So last topic na to, declare distances. So ito, very, very important details to. So take note on the declare distances. You'll be having this information on the field if you will be working with the aviation industry at any department, kailangan nyo itong declare distances. And again, isang topic lang yung skip natin, that is the obstacle data. As you can see, hindi ko diniscuss tong information dito since meron tayong midterm topic wherein we'll be discussing this information. So for to now, kailangan lang familiar tayo with the obstacle data and the obstacle limitation surfaces. Sa midterm na natin, i-discuss thoroughly ito. And again, if hindi nyo magets or ma-convey yung representation ng OLS, you could check the YouTube video provided here. Lastly, so we got the clear distances. Ito yung available operational distances on the airport for the safe takeoff, landing, and aborting takeoff also of our pilot. So, unang-una, ito ang tinitingnan ng ating mga, or ina-assess ng ating crew. If yung aircraft ba na gagamitin natin is kaya doon sa given distances ng airport. And hindi lang siya ganun kasimple by looking kung pasok yung distances ng ating aircraft. Papasok din dito yung current load ng aircraft natin. So before takeoff ng aircraft and also before landing, nakakompute na yung weight and balance ng ating aircraft. Kinocompute po to ng ground crew before flight. Napaka-importante po ng weight and balance for the successful takeoff and landing. Dito rin natin ma-determine kung ano yung sukat na kailangan natin for the actual operation ng takeoff and landing. And not only the weight of the cargo, the passengers, and the cargo ang kinocompute natin dito, dito rin natin ma-determine kung ano or ilan yung fuel needed natin for the rest of the flight or for the rest of the leg. Since I mentioned nga, ang fuel po ay laging proportional doon sa current weight ng ating aircraft. And of course, limited lang ang kaya ng ating aircraft and limited lang yung airport or yung kaya ng distance ng airport. Of course, the longer the runway provided, the larger the cargo na kaya nating dalhin. The shorter the airport, so sa mga probinsya, the shorter the airport, of course, the less cargo and the less weight na kaya nating dalhin. So for the declared distances, so we have a summary here. So apat lang naman siya. We have the takeoff run available, the takeoff distance available, the TODA, the ASDA, accelerate stop distance available, and the LDA. So you could see here yung representation to differentiate yung apat. So first stop is yung takeoff run available. So we got the TORA. So you could see here, dito siya from the displaced threshold up until the end of the runway. So unang-una nating i-discuss yung TORA since yun yung main thing to classify the other three. So if hindi natin makuha yung TORA, hindi natin makukuha yung tatlo pa. So again, TORA from the displaced threshold to the end of the runway. It's the takeoff run available, designed as the length of the runway available for the ground run ng aircraft taking off. So dito, as a pilot or as a crew, you could run the aircraft for takeoff. Next is yung TODA or the takeoff distance available. You could see ang TODA is Tora lang siya plus the clearway. So, inad lang natin yung clearway. The purpose ng TODA is to provide a distance available for the successful or initial climb ng aircraft. Kaya naglagay tayo ng clearway. So, ang clearway po, hindi siya necessarily kailangan na pavement. So, the clearway, kailangan lang free siya from major obstacle wherein it could provide the initial climb of the aircraft. Kailangan from that specific area magkaroon ng positive climb si crew to continue the takeoff of the aircraft. Again, the clearway should always be clear from any obstacle beyond the paved runway. So outside the paved runway, ito siya. And clearway, ito yung kulay green. It could not be as a paved runway. Minsan, pwede rin yung clearway natin is body of water. So restricted bodies of water yung ating clearway. So madalas ang clearway, restricted bodies of water since madalas ang airport natin is tinatayo beside or within the bodies of water. If you don't have an idea what's the reason, if you could remember sa aerodynamics, the more na mas malapit tayo sa sea level, the more na mas maganda ang flight conditions natin. With the air density and with the actual engine power, mas maganda ang power na nakukuha natin with the air mas malapit sa sea level. So with the clearway, you could also see na kahit yung stopway could be part of the clearway. But the stop or the clearway cannot be part of the stopway in reverse. We'll discuss it. The next one. So the ASDA, Accelerate Stop Distance Available. So ito naman po is yung defined length ng take-off run natin plus the length of the stopway. So that is TORA. So again, from TORA tayo, TORA plus the stopway. We get the ASDA. Sir, para saan naman po yung ASDA and bakit stopway lang yung kasama? So ang stopway po, paved part to ng airport pero hindi siya kasama ng runway. It's designed, so the pavement of the stopway is almost the same material used on the runway. However, hindi siya designated with the runway. The stopway is a paved part, designated siya. So madalas, and it's normal, na magkaroon tayo ng aborted takeoff and aborted landing. So if we have an aborted takeoff, usually half of the runway ang common sukatan to abort a takeoff, you will have, or the pilot or the crew will have distance and an additional distance, the stopway including, for have a braking distance for the aborted takeoff. As you can see, taking off, nag-gain tayo ng speed and half of the runway, around 100 knots na yun, or around 60, 80 for smaller aircraft. So we need a larger or an extra paved surface for the braking distance. And that is the primary purpose ng ASDA. And I mentioned kanina, also for the landing, aborted landing. Sir, paano naman po nakakatulong for the aborted landing ang ASDA? If we aborted a landing, usually we have a lot of factors to consider. However, when we land the aircraft on the runway, may times na we have to cancel the landing. And to have a go around, we'll have to gain a momentum or speed again. So after landing, we have an extra paved surfaces for us to gain and go back to the flight again if we have an aborted landing. And lastly is yung ating LDA or landing distance available. So yung LDA, yung shorter part, here we go. It's the defined length ng runway available for landing or ground run ng landing ng aircraft. You could see hindi kasama yung displaced threshold. So ang LDA po is TORA minus the displaced threshold. So hindi po tayo naglaland doon sa displaced threshold. The primary reason kung bakit tayo may displaced threshold is because we have an obstacle near uh, those runway. Kaya tayo nag-adjust or kaya tayo nagkaroon ng adjustment with the runway. So for the landing, kailangan dito ka magsisimula on the threshold. So yun lang ang pagkakaiba niya. Remember, at any runway, you could start your takeoff on the displaced threshold, but you cannot start your landing on the displaced threshold. And that's vice versa if dun ka sa kabila manggagaling. So pag kabila, ganun din. So you could have your takeoff with the displaced part, but you cannot have the landing on it. So moving forward, on next slide. Oh, so we have here another representation of what I have discussed. So may mga times kasi na ang runway hindi naman required to complete all those parts. So may mga runway na walang displaced threshold. So walang problema with the obstacle. May mga runway na walang clear way. So medyo crowded na yung area na yon. May mga runway na walang stopway, clear way lang. So nagva-vary yung declared distances natin. However, kahit nagva-vary yung declared distances natin, if we focus on the meaning of the four distances, you could still identify it. You could see here na yung TORA, ASDA, and LDA ay pare-parehas since wala tayong stopway and wala tayong displaced threshold. And vice versa on the other missing parts here. On the right-hand side, you could see here an example of a stopway and a clearway. So this part with chevron lines, and it's painted yellow chevron and a pavement part on the airport. So ayan po ang example ng stopway. So outside the runway na siya, but still you could use it for aborted takeoff and landing. Ito namang pong grass area. Itong part na to, boundary ng airport, and I think you have a road here on this example. As you could see, walang obstacle dito. Obstacle-free zone siya since it's part of the clearway that will be part of the initial climb ng aircraft. On the right hand, lower right hand naman of the slide, you could see here an example of a displaced threshold. You could see the arrows here provided. So meron tayong obstacle probably around this area ahead of the landing part kaya tayo nag-displace ng threshold. And you could see here a landing perspective of the crew. And I think it's on the glide path as I could see. So for this, bawal tayo mag-landing. Yung LDA natin will start on the on this part sa designation, runway designation. Dito lang tayo mag-start ng aiming point and dito tayo mag-start ng landing. You could also see here na meron tayong approach light if you could see to determine if mataas or mababa yung ating lipad. And there's the taxiway. Ang taxiway niya medyo alanganin. So wala siya sa end ng displaced threshold. So probably if you want to use the full length of the runway, kaya nga I mentioned kanina, you could take off on the displaced threshold. You will have to apply backtrack on the tower, to backtrack on the runway, and to use the full length of the runway. And as a crew, it's always or a much better option or choice to use yung whole length ng runway we're taking off. So as a crew, it's better to ask permission to backtrack and to use this full length of the runway. However, may mga times na maliit lang yung aircraft na dala or training aircraft lang. May mga times na don't need to ask a backtrack. So, pwede ka na mag-start ng takeoff mo here, paglabas mo ng taxiway na to. However, as I mentioned nga, mas mabuti ng sobra kesa kulang. Okay. Any questions so far with the declared distances? I think and hope clear yung representation ko with those. So almost done na tayo. A few minutes left for the class. Um, Obstacle-free take-off gradient. Ito yung kanina, yung clear way. So kailangan obstacle-free yan. And with the OLS, may obstacle-free zone tayo doon. We'll discuss it on midterm. Critical obstacle, ito yung pinaka-basis natin on the aerodrome. Ito yung highest obstacle lagi sa aerodrome. When you're making your flight plan, lagi tayo nagre-rely on the highest obstacle. And that is the critical obstacle. And declared distances, minsan nagkakaroon tayo ng changes on the declared distances. As I have mentioned kanina, yung taxiway, hindi siya eksakto doon sa beginning ng displaced threshold. So you could have your take-off run doon sa numbers. However, applicable din siya at certain conditions like on the pictures provided. So you could see nag-trace lang naman sila ng perpendicular line on the taxiway given. So kung doon ang direction mo, you'll start from here, yung take-off run. Pag dito ka naman sa kabilang side, naka-angle kasi yung taxiway, dito naman yung take-off run mo. So yung intersection ng runway and taxiway, nagkaroon lang sila ng perpendicular line with the intersection. And if perpendicular naman na yung taxiway, no need for the intersection. Just have a straight line on the runway, and from there, you could start your takeoff run available or your declared distances. And this is for intersection departures. And lastly, sorry, consuming the time, last slide na. Coordination between the AIS ng local authority and the aerodrome operator or the authority. As I mentioned nga, kanina, you should provide the accurate information timely. And currently, we are using a system. They call it IRAC system, used with the CAAP and also international ginagamit tong system na to. It stands for Aeronautical Information, Regulation, and Control. It's actually a cycle system wherein you put the information or the new information needed to be distributed to the authorities. They have two cycles. A double cycle is 56 days. So kailangan within those 56 days, prepared yung information mo. We have 28 days for a single cycle. So within 28 days, kailangan ready na before the 28th day yung information mo on those information. And additional 14 days for the postage time. Since may mga information that will be distributed internationally, may postage time din tayo additional. But then again, may mga ibang papers tayo for the information like NOTAM para sa mga urgent information. Kung urgent talaga doon sa approach and air navigation, you could have it on the NOTAM. Directly kasi ito mapaprovide with the flight operations ng aircraft and ng mga companies. But then again, if mga changes like maintenance, changes in taxiway, you could have it on the AIS and follow the IRAC system. Hindi rin naman kasi pwedeng ilagay natin lahat doon sa NOTAM since ma-overload naman yung crew na basahin yun on the pre-flight. So yung mga urgent doon dadaan, yung mga hindi urgent will have on the system. And based on my experience, may mga airlines na hindi na nag-aantay ng postage time. I've been on one airline wherein hindi namin inaantay yung printed publication. So we have the information on the web and we print it on our own para mas maaga namin ma-update yung aming information. So that ends our slide and our topic for prelim for 424. Any questions so far for the subject and for the topic discussed? Okay, if wala nang question, we'll be late on your next subject. So that's our discussion for 424. See you later this afternoon on our next subject. Thank you guys and have a good day.
Thank you po.